As the foundations of the Third Reich begin to crumble, Operation Margarethe continues. Hello, fellow armchair generals. This is, of course, Gamer1745, and we're continuing our playthrough of Panzer Corps II Axis Operations 1944. And yes, we're in Operation Margarethe. Now, remember, with this DLC, you have two basic options. You have the historical path, which is the one that I'm playing, or you have a fantasy one, which is sort of based upon the idea of a resurgence of the Third Reich and I think it's mainly a Southern Front counter or offensive or whatever you want to say into the Soviet Union. So keep that in mind, and we're doing the historical one, the collapsing of the Reich. Okay, and it's been a little while since I was playing, so brought this up because it's probably a little while since you've been watching. Objective: capture all 7 of the rail stations. Admiral Horthy must survive. He's sort of locked on his train by holding this position here. Otherwise, he'll get to the train station and disembark. You don't want that to happen. Bonus, capture all 5 bridge flags. Well, all 8 bridge flags. Sorry, why did I say 5? I don't know. All 8 bridge flags before the final rail station falls. And also another bonus, the 3 rail bridges. Capture them. So we're going to try to do all of that. So let's continue this. Now, again, I want to secure these locations so we don't have any pop-ups of enemies here, but we don't want to be next to that even for a moment because it'll destroy this unit. So try to use a unit that has 2 movements in one turn to achieve that. Now, we are also all out of decent air targets up here, so let's rebase down to here because we will have some down here. Many of these guys have fast rebase, so we can hit multiple. He's going to have 2 attacks, so let's. Right. We can see that there's stuff over there to attack that I was figuring would be there as well. Okay, he can't quite make that, but he can make this. Oh, and we have an armored car. And he can't make that one either. And we'll move this guy down here. He's weak, but he's also cheap. So, been keeping them around. Okay, well, these are the Azul infantry. Okay, well, let's see here. And we can get right back out. Guess I do not want to even spend part of the term. Okay, these are Wehrmacht infantry. Just wanting to know if I want to free up that guy. I don't know that I need to. Well, maybe these guys will head over that way. That's sort of only useful this scenario. Okay, they can't attack this turn, so no real great point in moving them into contact with the enemy, I don't think. So we want to preserve at least one rail station untaken until the last moments. Okay, we got some armor there. Well, let's put him there, him here. Just to sort of protect this artillery piece and counter battery fire. Guess he can stay on that location. We don't know. Okay, well, hello. Okay, we don't probably want to hang out right there either. Okay, we'll inch you up. Fire you. Okay, good. We have overrun, which means don't know. Okay, probably won't get a. But we will get a recon bonus. All right, good. We'll move this up to here, this to here. Them to there. They'd still be in trucks, so I don't. Well, that's a pretty good movement. Okay. Yeah. Well, they retreat out. No, we'll just stay here. We don't need that hex this turn. Oh, right. Standard Wehrmacht infantry, but it's our good stuff. So let's move these guys to here. Like I say, we're going to move much of these forces east across the river to Pest, away from Buda. Right, okay, I think that's good. Just what he was there to do is protect this from, to some degree, from assault. Maybe got hit a little harder than I anticipated. Yeah, I'd say so. Ooh. I don't know if you call them Lend-Lease tigers or whatever, but tigers have entered the mix. He was sort of meant to come here, I think, before. Well, let's see, what are we going to do here? That is an AA gun, so we really don't need to directly attack it with air power. Mentioning the air power, let's see where we can use it effectively. Okay. Yeah, that should get rid of the he is surrounded quality there. Right, the pioneers. These guys, well, they are now somewhat suppressed, so I guess we will. Scratched us a bit, but they are definitely not doing well. Good thing we're seeing that Pack 40 there, another Lend-Lease. Don't know. It's really interesting, and I found this out only recently. When I say recently, I mean things like in the last 3 to 5 years, okay? You know, because again, I'm really, really effing old. Yeah, I'm leaning into it more than maybe my actual age, but you would think with a totalitarian regime, and like a lot of people's impressions of National Socialism, of fascism, of communism, you think very much command economy. You know, you will make this. You will produce this until we tell you to stop. Now, with National Socialist Germany, to try to understand it, and I'm still, I don't know if struggling is the right word, I'm still working on trying to understand National Socialist Germany. There's many facets, or I'll not, let me put it this way, there's many possible different views of looking at it, on how to look at the country. You know, so again, we're looking here at the economy. You have to sort of to try to understand what Hitler wants to do ideologically. That's one facet. You have to understand another facet is, shall we say, pre-war realities. What Hitler, and you can, and he gets into power at the beginning of 1933, in the sense that is the first time Adolf Hitler has a government job, a government position, and he becomes chancellor. Now, there's still the president, Hindenburg, above him. So he is sort of, if you will, head of government, where Hindenburg is head of state, is sort of defined. But even under the Weimar regime, like it was under the German imperial system, the army, the armed forces, shall we say, because I think the Navy is included in the pre-World War I, basically, I don't think, this is something I just don't know right now. I'm sorry, sometimes some people think I know everything. On God, I don't know. But in World War I, what was the air operation situation? Was it like the Royal Air Force in Britain, along with the air arm of the Royal Navy? Or was it like the Americans, in which the air power was a sub-branch of the Army? That's the way technically it is through World War II for the United States, though more and more it's an independent operating system. You don't find a lot of captains or majors in World War II, I'm talking about, moving from, say, an infantry logistics job. This is as far as I know, and I may be entirely wrong, because it wouldn't be a flight job, because that would be, obviously you're a pilot. But moving from that to, say, being a logistics person on an Army Air Corps base, I don't think, where it might not need to be, a pilot to do the job. Getting more and more away from it. Now, getting higher up in the logistics chain is just the logistics for the, for everything. Food is food, boots are boots, but I think it's becoming more and more a separate branch, and it isn't until after World War II, and I think it's 47, but I'm not sure, that the Air Force is created as a separate branch in the United States. And like in Japan, I know that there were two Air Forces. One was the Army Air Force, if you will. The other was the Naval Air Force. And so the U.S., of course, is running a similar system. But like I say, for the Army Air Corps, it's becoming more and more of an independent branch. They're recruiting independently. You're not just going into the Army and then going into an air unit. And by that, it could be like just the mechanics. Are you fixing trucks or are you fixing aircraft? No, you're joining the Air Corps, and then with a non-pilot. Because I'm seeing this because I'm looking at recruiting posters and whatnot. And again, I don't know all the details. Again, I don't know everything. And I definitely know that there's a distinction between women joining the Air Corps and women joining the the Army Auxiliary Corps, and the names change a little bit. I'm not thinking of the right name right now, but so that there is a distinction more so than, say, in Japan, where you have the Army Air Force and the Naval Air Force, if you will, and of course you have in America sort of technically three air branches, because you have a very small Marine Air Corps, but of course that's part of the Navy. But then you also have the Navy Air Corps, and then you have the Army Air Corps. Where in Britain you have, in World War I, as far as I know, again, I don't know everything, you have the Royal Air Force as its independent branch formed. And then, of course, you have the air arm of the fleet of the Royal Navy as its own branch, even before you get the idea of carriers. They may have the idea, but the practical element of having carriers. Now, in Germany in World War I know there is a naval air corps. I don't know how big it is. I know particularly just one of them, sort of famous, is Osterkamp, pilot ace of World War I, who goes on into the Luftwaffe when it's formed early on and set up. He joins that new armed forces branch, and basically because of Goering's power within the National Socialist regime, he makes sure that virtually, not 100%, but virtually all air power is part of the Luftwaffe. This is why, one of several reasons, the Graf Zeppelin aircraft carrier is never completed, is conflicts over who is going to control it and who are going to control the pilots on it, and all of that. That is part, not the only reason, but part of the reason. Part of it, quite honestly, is Germany's tactical situation, in that I don't think they saw it as a, they're probably right about it too, as a necessity. They had higher priorities for other, for their resources of completing it and manning it and all that. But in the German imperial system prior to and during World War I, the army and its institutions are directly come under and branch off from the Kaiser. And there are multiple armies. I think there's 3 of them. There's the Prussian army, and that includes at least all of Prussia, East and West Prussia. Now, West Prussia has territory in that world way out, and it's, if you look at a map, way out in the west of Germany, in the Rhineland type area. It's a weird hodgepodge. It's not until the National Socialist regime comes about that they start to really rationalize the structural system in Germany, because whether it includes police or whether this region could be a city, could be some farmland. Well, this is Prussia, way out in the Rhineland. Well, why? Well, because the Hohenzollern monarchy somehow, through marriage, conquest, whatever, owns some piece of territory out there, so it's part of Prussia. It really isn't until the National Socialists you really get rationalization coming into the German state system. But there's also, like, the Bavarian army, I know, exists as its own independent establishment, and that is the army that is Rommel is a member of. So he's only serving in Bavarian units. And again, there's a lot I don't know about in the world, but from great channel, if you like, deep dives into weapons and small arms, and particularly World War I, is Sea and Arsenal, the channel. Watched all this. This is how I sort of know some of this. And just give credit where credit is due. Is that the records for the adoption of various Mauser rifles, or what we think of as Mauser rifles today, only really exists today in Bavaria because the Prussian documentation of trials and adopting of the rifles and all of that paperwork is gone. It's just gone. Whether it was in a building that gets burned down because of Allied bombing, or hey, yeah, take all these records and dump it on that fire at the end of World War I. I think World War II, I think, is when they all disappear. Whether it's an intentional just destroy files, because there's huge amounts of files that get destroyed at the end of World War II, and they're not very careful as to, like, well, do we care if the Allies of 1945, do we care that they knew what happened in 1880 something on the adoption of some rifle? No, they don't care. It's just dump files on on the pyres, on the burning fires, pyres and fires. I'm saying two different terms there. Dump all the files there just to quickly do it. I know this happens. I don't have any clue about the adoption of the Mauser rifle stuff, but what we have is just sort of the reports that were sort of summary reports that were being sent down to Bavaria, because Bavaria was going to, in essence, have to adopt whatever Prussia decided to do for the rifle, the standard infantry rifle. They got to be their own army. It was sort of like, until fairly recently, as there was the Scottish establishment. And through the 18th century in England, there was the English army and the English establishment, as it was sort of called. And then there was the Scottish army and the Scottish establishment. I mean, they called them establishments, but it's sort of a separate army and under a separate governing rules, budgetary, all this kind of stuff. It was its own sort of thing. And then there was also the Irish army, which, of course, we're talking the English-controlled Irish army. And at times, especially I think between Ireland and England, at times that there was shifting of regiments around and strengths and whatnot and officers. So that's the 18th century in England, that those are three different establishments and officers could trade commissions between them, but rarely would, privates and NCOs switch, very rarely. Officers is, hey, you're just, there's a good hey, I want to become, I've been a lieutenant for a while, I want to purchase a captaincy. Oh, well, there's a captaincy in this Scottish regiment. Do you want to buy it? You could sell and so there was a fair amount of that for officers going back and forth in the English thing. So it's sort of that type of thing, in that they're fairly independent and, between the different establishments in Germany, your promotion track, kind of thing. I do think it was, looking at Rommel, his was all contained in Bavaria, but it was its own hierarchy, own chain of command, until it was maybe given over to the front line and whatnot. But they were going to use the same basic equipment for their fancy dress uniforms that many units have, and I say fancy dress as opposed to field uniforms. Within the German imperial system, you'll notice a fair amount of variation until you get to, the field gray of everyone just going and marching out into the front lines. So all of these different establishments, and I think there were three basic of them: the Prussian, the Bavarian, and I think one other, but I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. I know there's at least two. I think there's more than that. These were all straight under the control of the Kaiser, ultimately. And the, if you will, the Minister of War was basically a military position, as opposed to, like, we would think of as somebody, whose function as a Minister of War is sort of like, a field marshal, a active serving officer put in charge of that type of position. And then parallel to that, but not, it doesn't answer to it, is the civil government of the German Empire, or the Weimar Republic. So my understanding with Hitler, the army isn't, when he comes in as chancellor, isn't like below him. It's below Hindenburg as president. Hitler has, no control over the army until Hindenburg dies, and Hitler's able to consolidate the chancellor's and president's position as one under the Führer, and that is sort of one of the key moments of getting all of the officer corps, in essence, to swear allegiance to Hitler personally, and a lot of these guys took that seriously. Not just like swearing allegiance to the president, but a particular president, if you will. So you can see there is when I talk about this, until Hindenburg dies in, 34, Hitler has basically no say of what's happening in the army. And it's outside of his control. And so when you look at the National Socialist regime and Hitler, you see like, as you can tell here, a progression of Hitler getting more and more power over it. So if you look at any one slice of time during it, you can look at the the realities of that moment, but that would not be correct 6 months or 6 years later. But so you have Hitler ideologically, but you have Hitler getting fairly secure by 36, definitely by 37, 38, just before the war starts, fairly well in control of the situation, but there are still political realities to deal with. Then you have a third look at what's going on, is the, shall we say, the corrosive effects of the war. And we're talking about production here. With all of the major manufacturers of war materials that I know of, my understanding currently is it's all done by contracts and, if you will, bidding for the bidding on the contracts, like, oh yeah, we'll build Tiger tanks for 10,000 Reichsmarks a tank. I don't know what they by Henschel, say. And these are corporate business decisions, not the army coming in and saying, this is the tank we want, build it for us. No, it's sort of like, hey, here's a general idea of tank. We want it, this thick of armor, this kind of gun. We want it to weigh no more, this thick of armor, but we don't want it to weigh more than this amount. We want, here's the parameters. Well, what do you got, guys? Wow me, kind of thing. And so you have, I believe it is Henschel on the one hand, and then you have the Porsche tanks. And this is what you often see with Porsche is they build a lot, whether you want to call it on speculation or just because Dr. Porsche wants to build what he wants to build. So Porsche comes, wants to, hey, the National Socialist regime was, I would say, in both a practical and an ideological sense, the first major in-power political party that had a green movement as part of it. I don't see any green elements in communism, and I really don't see it much in other, particularly a green movement in other political ideologies. Hey, prove me wrong. I'd love you to point to me like a early 1930s or something significant green movement. But the National Socialists were rather green. And so, maybe, hey, yeah, we want, hybrid engines, because that's what Porsche wanted to do. He wanted to have a diesel engine that powers an electrical engine that then drives the Tiger tank. And he just goes ahead and starts building them. The Army hasn't said they wanted any. They haven't approved this. He just starts building the holes. He's building the holes. He's not building the turrets. And he just starts building these tanks, the tank holes. I think it's like 80, 90 or something. And the Army then goes, no, we want the Henschel model. But I got these tank holes over here. Yeah, well, we don't want them. We're going to go with this other model. Oh, but I got these tank holes over here. So he does a deal. Or this is what happens. This is, I think, considered an Elephant, which is same vehicles, just retrofitted. Starts out as the Ferdinand, after Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, of course. Let's take this holes. Well, okay, we'll take them. What can we do with them? Well, let's stick on a big casemate and put on a super version of the 88mm gun, a bigger version of it, and use that. But don't build any more of them. We're not going to buy any more of them. We won't approve any more. But since you already built the holes, we might as well use them because they are more useful than simply scrapping them. But it isn't, it's a sort of a close thing. So again, for what you think of as a command economy, Hitler doesn't want a command economy. Hitler is not a fascist. Hitler is not a communist. He does not want to tell manufacturers exactly what to build. Now, again, reality and the plans of the war early on, I'm blanking over the name, although I'm picturing his face. They rationalize motor vehicle production in Germany to radically reduce the numbers of models of cars, trucks, and particularly motorcycles being made in Germany, so that when war was going to come, they couldn't quite say that, but the guys doing it knew that that's what's going to happen. War is going to come. That they have just a few models of trucks and motorcycles. I forget exactly, but they go down to basically about a third of the model types than before. And by model types, I'm talking mainly what we would consider engines and transmissions and axles and that type of thing. You can have all kinds of, so we say, different trucks. Some may be refrigerated, some may be flatbed, for delivery trucks, and all kinds of commercial variations of what's built on a basic, style of frame. You can do that, and you can, have motorcycles, paint them any color you want, but make sure all the engines and all the critical bits and pieces are all the same, so that you're not making a bunch of different types, so that when you need to for the war, you can just crank out a few types of these things. So Hitler wants the competition, unlike fascism, unlike communism, and unlike socialism to a degree. He wants the competition. He values the competition. He does not want it to be an entirely command economy. Now, as the war is going on, well, even before the war, particularly with the Reichswerk, Hermann Goering, National Works, Hermann Goering, he doesn't own it. It's just named after him because it is part of the 5-year plan, and he is in charge of the 5-year plan, and so hence he's in charge of the Reichswerk, Hermann Goering. It's a megacorp, shall we say it, because it does a lot of mineral extraction projects, mining, if you will, often open pit mining, but does a bunch of that, but also picks up like Simpson and Sons, which was the smallest of the major small arms manufacturers in Germany. And because of that, because they don't want to have large, Krupp or Mauser or whoever making weapons, the only one that's licensed under the Treaty of Versailles to continue to make weapons for the Reichswehr and the police and whatnot in Germany is Simpson and Sons. They're fairly large small arms producers. They're the only ones that are allowed to continue. The reason you don't hear of them in World War II is they happen to be Jewish owned. years ago now, one of the heirs or family members, or whatever you want to say it, did contact me and told me a little bit that they got out. Because they are, I think it's in 36, but I forget the exact year in Third Reich events because I covered it and he saw it from there. That it is, there's a story behind it and he gave me some details on it. It's confiscated by the government. They claim in court documents that, well, we're taking this over because they've been defrauding the government. Because for all their pistols and rifles, or Lugers and Mausers or whatever that they were making for the government, they were double billing them. They were billing them twice as much. They were defrauding the government. You can't, charge us $40 for a rifle that's supposed to cost us $20. That's criminal. It's not what they were doing. It's what it looked like they were doing on paper, and the Nazis took advantage of it. They were building twice the number of weapons and turning them over to the government than that they were reporting to the Versailles Commission. And so that's why they were charging double for the weapons, because they were delivering twice as many. Again, to be good, loyal Germans, but, not good, loyal Nazis. So that was sort of the excuse, and they nationalized that company. And other companies get under Reichswerk Hermann Göring, and particularly the Gustloff works that it gets name changed into, but it's held by that. It's a government-owned corporation. It's sort of under the Reichswerk Hermann Göring. It's its own sort of corporation, but it's owned by the government. That is not what Hitler wants to have happen. That happens, but it's more and more becomes the case, but mostly because of the war. Now, early on, again, it's confiscating certain companies because they have the wrong ownership, particularly Jewish, but the wrong ownership. But like, as I say, as the war is going on, they're setting up more and more production facilities that are direct government owned. But that is not, because we can see late into the war, the mouse, Hitler's is a nice little photo that I've seen, I've saved, of Hitler watching a remote controlled toy mouse that was probably, 2 or 3 feet long being driven around, kind of thing. And there were 2 completed, as you're probably aware of. Well, Porsche, Dr. Porsche, specifically, not the company, wants to build more of these. He's told no, because we're not going to accept them. We don't want them. Well, in the time of shortage of good steel, he has built out, something like 10 or 20 hulls and turret bodies. Not all completed, just sort of the big chunk part completed, but they're, no internals, no nothing, just sort of sitting there, that are captured by the Allies, and he holds on to them until the end of the war, hoping to get these things manufactured at some point when that steel could desperately be used by Panther production or something like that. But nope, Porsche continues. So it's really interesting how contract based, how business based, how competitive based, not just on, oh, hey, you've got to do, like the Soviet system, again, I don't know everything, but the Soviet system, they have design bureaus. And so you have, whether it's, the MiG or the Yak or whatever, design bureaus, a bunch of guys designing aircraft. And the government is deciding on, do we want to produce this aircraft or not, and whatnot. It's not just that they have different design bureaus that are working for the government. These are independent companies doing sort of their own thing to a degree, to government contracts and government specifications, which I find interesting for understanding National Socialist Germany. Now, get to the back to, I know this is gamer's usual long-winded getting around to things. And I do know that there were German tanks given over to countries like Hungary and Romania and such. I'm thinking of those two countries in particular. Sometimes it seems that they're old models. Whether they've seen a lot of service at the front or simply been around for a while, and they're given over to Romania and Hungary. Or sometimes it seems like with some of the Tigers that they're relatively current production. And like when I say old, I mean old, it may be like a year or two old models, maybe upgraded, things like these guys, the Panzer 3Ns, or other, Panzer 3s, the 3M, if you will, or similar vehicles that have been upgraded to, quote unquote, the standard, in that they have the long-barreled 50 millimeter gun, they've got added armor, they've got the additional added Schützen armor, there's thick plates, and you can look at some of these tanks if you get a decent enough photo, and you can tell, oh yeah, that's maybe an L or a J model that has been, up armored as opposed to originally produced as an M or an N type model. And so that, that the equipment that has been pulled off the line or pulled off from other units and given over to the Allies apparently a few years later, where some of them looks like they probably have not served with the German armed forces. So I don't know if this would be under a Lend-Lease strategy, meaning that these are government property, that you're just simply taking them away from the Wehrmacht and giving them to the Allies. I don't know if it's that, or if they are allowed, shall we say, whoever's actually paying for them, but allowed to sell, Henschel or whoever's allowed to say, oh yes, Hungary wants some Tiger tanks. Okay, Henschel, yeah, you can sell them 20 or something, some number. And does Henschel sell them to Hungary? I don't know. That would be an interesting thing. If anybody does know, I'd love to hear how countries like, particularly because, you got the main two armored forces. Well, you also have down in Italy now, with the rebuilding of divisions after their destruction in North Africa, Salere and Arietta, I think it's Arietta, don't know how to pronounce it, and some other armored formations that are rebuilt around sort of the reserve garrison element of the divisions. They're given basically Panzer IVs, Panzer 3Ns, I think mostly, maybe some Ms, but I think Ns, and Stugs of the current model. But the Italians did not like the Schützen on the sides of the tank, and I'm not sure. I doubt it's a purely aesthetic, though you never know with Italians, and maybe they just didn't think it looked cool. They leave the Schützen on the turret, but they don't like them on the sides. I don't know whether it's based off of maintenance difficulties, and they don't think it's worth putting them on and taking them off to do the track maintenance, or whether it's potentially the narrow environment of moving around Italy, that it just makes the tank a little bit wider and you scrape on more buildings and walls and whatnot moving around Italy, but they particularly don't. But they have the Schützen on them, on the hulls. They're built with that, now these tanks never, another case that, to the best of my knowledge, at least not in Italian service, the Germans may have retaken over some of them, never fight the Allies. They end up fighting the Germans. Yeah, a little bit too late that the Germany's getting at those. And again, I don't know if those are government lend-lease in the idea, again, as that ain't going to turn out well. Government to government situation, or whether it's Italy buying them from. And those, I believe, were all new production, the stuff going to Italy at the time. Getting them from the German corporations to the Italian government, or from the army. Okay, well, we have to deal with this situation here. He could come to here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to fire on these guys. Boom. We're going to move out into the open because part of the problem was close defense situation. These guys can come to here. So they can attack here, they can attack there. These, not an Ash Hornet, it is a Hummel. So we have artillery capabilities. We got you over here. Okay, so we're going to okay. You might be able to get to there, so. Okay, you died. Well, you can get to here. Very good. Overrun. Well, hello. That worked out quite well, actually. Well, nowhere else you can go, but at least he's eliminated that Tiger unit. Okay, well, we basically eliminated everything but this sort of holdout in Budapest Castle on this side of, well, in Buda, on the side of the let me think of it. I know the Danube. Yes, see, I know. Okay, okay, he can't move. Okay. I'm going to come down and make sure he has artillery support. Not sure because the way the bridge is, I'm not sure if that would directly give artillery support. The Pioneer unit, yeah, you can come and take here. Now here, what we will do can wait a turn, I hope, on that. Okay, yeah, that'll be okay. You can come to here. You just may be useful down there, so we're going to make sure you get to there to hold that. Brumbars, we like brumbars. Brumbars are cool. Another overbuilt thing, but hey, it's still cool. Partially because I like doing them, but I hope you are interested in my historical analysis of things. I know it gets a bit long-winded. I do know that. And I also know in that it is not for everyone. And yes, I could probably do a better job of okay, so we got 2 more commendation points. That's sort of the big thing. That's why we're using these prototype quote-unquote Tiger 2s. Surprised they didn't use the Porsche turret for the prototype version, but yeah, okay. Okay, the artillery, well, and we could push there, but we won't. We'll leave them there for the moment. I think my understanding from reading the description, these can possibly spawn, the barracks particularly, can spawn enemy soldiers. They recommend quote-unquote surrounding them while we're capturing them and retreating, so I think that's going to keep them from spawning soldiers. We will see. I may be wrong. So these guys may be spawning out of these Hungarian barracks. I think they are, in fact. Right. Okay. Oh, you see, we got these guys, and these guys spawned here. Okay, so we see that for an actual fact as happening. Right, okay. Artillery. Right. So they've recaptured that because of this. But I haven't seen them do it out of here. Okay, well now they're at least encircled. Okay, but we got that, and they now have artillery backup. Bit weak, but the PaK-40s did a little more damage than I think they should have, but oh well. Yeah, let's move you that way to be a little bit safe. Okay, so we've got the rail bridges. We got all the bridges prior to getting all of the rail stations. So now it's just really a job of getting the rail stations down. Just keep them out in the open there. Yeah, probably because they're... Well, we'll see about doing that. There we go. Well, no, we're not going to actually. We want to stay back in support of the artillery, I think. I think we will also take this opportunity to elite reinforce there. Yeah, that could be useful pushing there. These guys, I think that is reasonably safe. So let's push up here. Oh, we have the air power. Where do we want the air power? Well, how far? Okay, well, we should have used this before. That would have been smarter, but then again, I'm not that smart. That one wouldn't have mattered, I don't think, but still. Okay, well, up here, this would matter. Okay, well, next turn, hopefully we'll get that. But hey, if you want to see us get that and the rest, I'm going to come back next time. Thank you so much to all that have made it this far. If I haven't already got you to lick that like button, please do so. And it also super helps so much if you just say hi gamer or something simple like that in the chat below. If you just put that in, that really helps with the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time for more historical gaming.